Um, Hi, good afternoon. Today is October 11th, 2025, and it's about 5 p.m. US Central Time. Today is Saturday, October 11th. And my name is Rinaldo J. Aguiar Marcano, and I'm recording this video from my house located at the 26714 Valleyside Drive, Katy, Texas, 77494. So today, I don't really have, you know, important structural updates, but just a few tiny things, right, that have happened that they're kind of funny, right? And um, I, I I tend to try to document these things that are funny because well, you have to try to find humor in all this, right? Because otherwise, I think humor makes it sustainable, right? Or I don't know what's the right word. I guess what I'm trying to say is that if you can have fun, while going through this, what's the point, right? So um, it's just hilarious, right? Like the whole situation. Um, so I'm gonna start. One is with the cold mobile, okay? The 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 suburban, the armored suburban that I bought on November last year, and that it's fitted with surveillance equipment and sensors, and that this is how I gather information and data, right? It's kind of a data collector vehicle. Like if it's kind of those street view vehicles that Google has photographing streets, kind of the same idea, but also paired with spectrometers and satellite connection and things like that. Uh, so yes, the cold mobile. The observation is, I think, and then this is a theory, right? I can't be 100% sure, but it seems to me at this point that they are tremendously afraid of the cold mobile after I install the high performance antenna on the roof. And I say this because something new happened, right? That I've noticed it today, but it's the second thing that happens in 10 days, targeting the cold mobile. And all this started right after I mounted the antenna on the roof. So that tells me, right? Logic tells me that they see super high risk on that antenna being circulating around in Katy. The first thing that happened, just to refresh your memory, was when they started bringing the cats with the small children next to me. And I think the play was to make some sort of claim of that I had done something to the children, or that I had an inappropriate interest in the children, something along those lines, right? And they were going to make this claim collectively, multiple of the cats at the same time, and they were going to go to the police and have me arrested or something, right? And the goal was to seize the cold mobile, right, with the police, because he has the cameras, right? So they were going to say that the cameras were to record children, like as in child pornography or something like that, right? But of course, I saw it coming, right? And I put it on the book, and then they desisted, right? Because it would be confirming what I'm saying, right? So that was the first instance, and that was maybe like 10 days ago, right? So they started doing this every day I went out. They were obviously trying to put something like that together, right? But the target wasn't necessarily me, was the cold mobile, number one, and secondly, the recordings, right? Because if they can see the recordings of the last 2 years using the legal, system, or the law enforcement system, right, it's a win, right? So that was the first thing. And today, I haven't, because I know, right, that they have a sick interest about the cold mobile at this point. Like I can see it, right? So I've been avoiding to take it out because I don't want to give them any opening, right? Until I know exactly what is the angle, right? Because after I know, then I can, take measures to prevent it from happening. But if they get me in a situation that I don't know what's coming, it could be they could do something, right? So this morning, I was going to take it out, right? And I go, to open the COL module, and the battery is dead. It has no battery. And this is strange because this car, first of all, right, it's an armored vehicle, and because it's armored, many of the systems of the car are redundant. For example, it has not one but two batteries, right? Two independent batteries, and are high capacity batteries. So I mean, this car, to run out of, like, it's not. And not only that, those batteries are practically brand new. I bought them, I think, 4 months ago, and these batteries are so high end that for the two batteries, I paid, I think it was like $900, right? They're like one of the most expensive batteries for cars, right? And it doesn't have one, it has two, and they are less than 6 months old. And I didn't have anything connected in the car, inside of the car, any lights on or anything, right? Because I always check. Because I can have the luxury of running out of battery, right? So so how they did it. Like, it was them, right? It was them, so I could not take the car out with the antenna, right? I know how they. I mean, I'm gonna say I know because I didn't see them doing it, but it seems obvious to me how they did it, right? I have to say, I mean, it's pretty funny, right? Because it's one of those anecdotes that show, how inventive they are. And when I say this, I don't know, I can't avoid thinking that if they apply this level of creativity to, something good, they would probably be, in a good place, right? But it's just that they decide to focus this creativity on, crimes or committing crimes or things like that, right? So anyhow, I think this is what they did, and it's it was my mistake. I mean, I asked for it, right? I don't know if I deserved it, but I gave them the opening, right? So what happened was, I don't know, some time ago, I don't recall exactly when, but some time ago, they were doing this thing where they were like shutting down the lights on entire streets where the prominent, what I call the top dogs, live, right? And the idea is, because I was scanning the neighborhoods, and the COL mobile was fitted with GoPro cameras, which, the night vision of those cameras is not very good, because those cameras do not have infrared vision, right? They don't have infrared light or LEDs, and also they have an infrared filter. So even if because I have external infrared lights, right, that I can mount in the car as I had before, but even if I do that, those cameras are kind of blind to infrared. So, it doesn't do much. And they know that, right? So what they did is that they started turning off the lights of the streets in Katy, of the streets where the important people live, right? Because, this is a society, their society is a society that is hierarchical. The people that are important are the people at the top. The ones at the bottom, they're disposable. So, I mean, to them, right? But where the top dogs are, they were turning off the lights. And I think I said this before in one of the posts, right? This is also a footprint. Like, if authorities want to know where the top dogs are, all you have to do is look at the consumption of the street lights in Katy. Those streets where the consumption has, valid below the historic levels per night in the last year, in certain months, that's because a top dog lives in that street. Because they turn off the light, and that will consume less electricity, and that electricity is metered, right? So that leaves a footprint. Anyhow, so what I did in response was that I bought, they look like, they're like external, they look like hunting lights. Those that I got them at Walmart, right? They're like external lights that you mount on the vehicle, right? I put them on the hood, right? But I mounted them facing towards the sides, right? Where the cameras are pointing as well. So as I drive, they are basically pointing, they're like searchlights, right? They're pointing towards where they would have the cars parked in their driveways, waiting for messages, right? From the digital relays, mailmen that they have, right? And as I would scan the streets, the lights would, illuminate the plates of the cars, and the cameras were calibrated to point exactly to the place where the plates would be, right? And it was a very efficient system of capturing the plates. So those searchlights, right? It's a pair that comes together, left and right, and they have, they're wired directly to the battery, and they have a remote control that I have here. Let me show you. Right? It looks like this, right? This is a remote control. And it has two buttons here, on and off, right? So you can turn on the lights. I can turn on the lights from inside the vehicle and turn them off. So what they've been, for the last, I imagine, 4 or 5 days, right? When I go to sleep, they've got another, set of these lights, because this has no security, right? This is not encrypted. It's just a frequency with an expected signal. And if the lights hear the signal at that frequency, they go on, or the other signal, and they go down, right? So what they did, I suspect they did, is that they got another set of this little number, right? And when I go to sleep, they turn on the lights of the vehicle. And if they see that I wake up, because they have this house wire, right? They know when I wake up, and they know when I go to sleep, right? So they've been draining the 2 batteries for the last few days. And because I haven't taken the car out in the last, I don't know, probably 8, 9 days, it gave them enough time to drain the 2 batteries, right? So I go this morning to turn on the car. Surprise, surprise, the car is dead, right? No batteries. So I had to go to the other house, get the previous cold mobile, the Tesla, right? And bring it back here. And I had the old batteries of that car. I brought them here, and so now I have batteries and the charger. It's not going to stop me. But right, they calculated that if they did that, it would be very difficult for me to, turn the car on again. Or it could give them the opening that I might be tempted to go to AutoZone, which they control, right? That store is owned by Diosdado Cabello, obviously, right? I mean, I'm saying that because of the data in the geo index. And that's why the AutoZones are always, placed strategically, right, in those buffer zones. So I imagine, right, that they had that same battery already customized at AutoZone in case I went there to buy another battery, right? A battery with a GPS or something, right? Like something that would allow them to track me easier, right? So anyhow, it was a good one. It was funny, right? I mean, funny because it was silly of me of leaving that thing connected directly to the battery, right? Without any kind of hard switch to prevent this from happening. And leaving the door of the radio frequency open, which, they are the kings of radio frequency, obviously, right? So, it was really a mistake that I made. I deserved it anyway. But of course, now I learned it's not going to happen again, right? So that's with the cold mode. But beyond the funny story of how they drain the battery, I think the takeaway, at least for me, is that they're terrified of that antenna that I have on the top of the cold mobile. So of course, what is going to happen now? I'm going to, make a point to start daily rounds with the cold mobile in a very structured and systematic way, right? And if knowing what they're doing, right, and knowing the structure of Katie, I understand why they're afraid, right? Like they have all this data flying through the air, right, that has information about operations they're running, things they're planning, crimes they're committing or they have committed, right? Again, not against me, like in general, right? In other places, like it's a network, right? The information jumps from node to node, and even if this is Katie, maybe information about a crime that could have been committed in Washington could be routed through here, and I, could catch it and intercept it and decrypt it. And they know that I have technology to decrypt their messages because I think I've proven that, right? Like I've told them things that I've decrypted. And they know that they're right? So they know that I can decrypt it. So they must be terrified because they can't shut down the communications in Katie because that would cut off their network, right? In the US, it would cripple their network. This is a major routing point. And you can see that because of the scores in the geo index, right? Which are network routing points. So it's one of those things where they can't, they can't fix the problem. They can't avoid it. So the only solution is to immobilize the cold model, right? Now, speaking of neutralization, there was something weird today, right? It didn't amount to anything, but I saw the situation and it seemed odd to me. I'm just going to mention it here just in case, right? I don't know. It's not even a hypothesis. It's just something that felt off. And, I've learned through this process that when something feels off, more often than not, it is something, right? So I'm going to say it. So my former partner invited me to go to, it's kind of a kids event, right? It's one of those things that they do where, people put, it's like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like, I don't know. It's like, they call it trunk or treat, I think. So it's a parking lot and there are vehicles parked in the parking lot. And each vehicle offers candy to the children, because Halloween is close. Anyhow, she invited me, right? But the location where this event took place immediately raised a red flag because it's between Kroger, where they tampered with my medication in November after I captured the GEO index, and Lowe's. It's right in the middle. And Lowe's, there have been multiple attempts against me related to Lowe's, right? And this thing is in the middle between Kroger and Lowe's here in Spring Green. And it's a medical facility, adding points to the suspicion, right? As in medical, it's an important thing they control, right? It's a professional circle that they control heavily, at least here. So anyhow, and the fact that we are in this situation, right, that I've described already, the invitation alone seemed odd, right? Like, why would she invite me today to that event after what she told me yesterday, right? So anyhow, I went, but I said to her, I'm going to go, but I'm going to have my phone recording everything, right? In case they do something to me, I have a record of what they did, right? So anyhow, I have my phone, right, on recording. It's always on recording by software. I don't have to even do anything to it. It's the same thing that they're doing with the agents, right? Where they enable, the only thing I don't have yet is the image stabilization. But the rest of the technology, I have it, right? So I get there, right? And of course, right, I made sure to only focus my phone on my son, and unless an adult that, could look suspicious, right? Based on the things that I already know. I avoided any children, of course. So anyhow, we're there. And while we're there, right, there is a big line to take pictures. Like, there is a photo booth. And next to the photo booth, there was a police officer. I imagine from the sheriff office. Like, he didn't have like a blue uniform. It was more like I don't know. I know there's different types of uniforms, and they signify different things. But it wasn't a blue, a state trooper, or it wasn't a all blue uniform. He was wearing khaki pants and a blue T-shirt, and the T-shirt has his name engraved in here. He was a Hispanic last name, and he looked Hispanic. Could be Filipino as well. But he was positioned strategically next to the photo booth, right? And what was suspicious to me, or not suspicious, but it made me uncomfortable, right? That there were all these children in this area, right? The small children, and he was armed, carrying a gun on his belt, like a loaded gun, right? I don't know, the combination of a bunch of children running and somebody armed with a fire gun, with a firearm visible, within reach. It didn't sound like a good combination to me. I don't know, right? If you and remember, like, this is a suburban area, right? It's a low crime, street crime, right? It's a high crime area in terms of, Diosdado Cabello and, the Seven and all that. But in terms of street criminality, right? This is a low crime area, like there's no assaults, no, you know. So what is the need to have this armed person in this activity at 10 a.m. on a Saturday that is full of children? I mean, if the area is so insecure, that shouldn't be a place to have children to begin with. It sounds like a contradiction to me, you know? Like, if this area, I guess what I'm trying to say, this area, right, is so prone to crime, or this thing is so dangerous that an armed police officer has to be there with a gun, it sounds to me like the children shouldn't be there to begin with, right? So I don't know. It seemed odd to me, right? So remember, but I have my phone recording, right? And I already mentioned this in the car, and I was in her car when I said that, right? And you know, everything I said in that car, they listen to it with all the other cars, right? So when I see the man with the gun, you know, and I have the name and everything, I'll put it on the pipeline to see what comes back. But you know, I did the same technique that they do, that I put my, you know, my phone in my pocket, but with the camera pointing out, and I, of course, you know, took an angle that would be straight to him, right? When I did that, he looked at the phone and he turned around. Like, he started looking on the other direction so he wouldn't be recorded by the phone, right? So that suggested to me that he probably had the information that the phone would be recorded, because, you know, how could have he known that, right? And secondly, for some reason, that was something that was undesirable to him, right? To be, you know, recording in my phone. So it didn't amount to anything, right? He never took the gun out. There was no. But if there had been an incident, right, and in that parking lot, somebody, you know, and me or something, right, and that gun being there, it is possible, right, that something that it could have escalated. So I don't know. It's one of those things that, you know, I will never know, I guess, right? But I thought I should mention it, right? Because, as I said, right, they were developing this plan before of trying to get the Colt Mobile seized with the police, right? So, you know, yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say, right, is that in all these years that I've been here, I think I've only seen an armed police officer carrying a gun in his uniform 3 times in 11 years, maybe 4 times, right? And one of those times was today in that event that my former partner invited me to after we had that thing yesterday, right? That argument yesterday. So I don't know. It seemed a little bit odd, right? And speaking of that, the other thing I wanted to document is that on the first appellate court, so the appellate court for the First District of Texas, where I filed the petition for Mandamus, I got a letter yesterday from a gentleman saying that he had been retained to represent the real party in interest. So in this type of proceedings, right, like this proceeding, I'm basically the respondent in that proceeding is the judge at the 387th district, right, the lower court. And the real party in interest would be my former partner. I mean, the party that got, benefit from the actions that the judge took, right? But the real respondent is the judge. It's not my former partner. I mean, she is mentioned as the real party in interest because she has to be notified if I succeed. But my action is against the decisions of the judge and the court, right? Not against her. But anyhow, I get this email, right, that this gentleman from a firm called OW Lawyers got retained by her, right? And he got added to the case. I sent him the documents, you know, the short, concise, professional email. I sent him all the documents. But you know, I will add him and his firm to the pipeline to see what comes out. Of course, right? I haven't done this work yet, so I'm not going to say anything in that regard. But something does seem a little bit odd, right? So one is that this firm has, you know, I didn't know this, right? But these firms have what they call a service email, which is like an email address or alias that they set up. And when they are working on a case, they add that, and that way, underneath, they can route, on their side, they can route the notices on the services to the lawyers that are working on different areas, right? So this firm has service emails for a different set, for a set of different US cities that are very important cities. So they have service email addresses for New York, for Houston, for San Francisco. What this tells me is that this is a very high-end firm, right? This is a firm that has lawyers in New York, in San Francisco, in Austin, in Houston, in Miami, right? This is not a small, mom and pop shop, right? This is interesting to me because the allegations of Morgan Heidner in the 387 score are that my former partner is without any financial resources. And that's why they needed to seize control of my house and everything, right? Because I'm crazy and I can't make decisions by myself. So she needed to preserve the assets for the child. That was her argument, right? Because she doesn't have any. But if this is a firm that has offices in all these expensive cities in the US, this doesn't cost $50 per hour, right? I haven't seen the invoices, right? But I imagine there's more. Morgan Heidner said on the record, Morgan Heidner is an attorney from a suburban town of Texas. She has less than 10 years of experience. I don't know how many years, but she is not a top lawyer in New York, right? And she said in the record that her hourly fee was $450 per hour, right? So I imagine these lawyers must be at least, let's say, $1,000 per hour, right? And because of the level of sophistication that I put through software in these filings, I can estimate that this is going to take these lawyers at least 100 billable hours, right? So we're talking about at least $100,000 in legal fees. And Morgan Heidner said that and they filed this with the 387, that she supposedly has $9,000 left in her bank account. So this seems to me like a deep contradiction. How is she going to pay $100,000 in legal fees, right? This immediately brought to my mind a post I wrote about Wilmer Ruperti, how he pays for the legal defense of people that are operatives of the countries that are part of this network, right? Because he is the Bizarro ambassador of Diosdado to the US. And this is in the books, right? I'm not saying anything that is not in the books. So I made a comment to her, something along the lines, right? I was just trying to make a funny comment, right? Like I told her, this is getting almost in a situation that is almost comparable to the narco nephews. When the nephews of Nicolas Maduro got arrested in New York for drug trafficking, Wilmer Ruperti paid, top-end lawyers, the most expensive lawyers he could find for one of them, right? I imagine he did it for one, but the same lawyers, I don't know, it's the same case, right? If they do one thing, it's the same, right? But anyhow, it feels like, it's the same, right? Well, and not only that. So in the filings, in the court, right? So in this service address that they put, right? It's a service address and say something like HOU service, something like that, like Houston service, right? At owlawyers.com. So they added the email and they added 3 people to the list. So if you look at the e-filing system, right? It's me acting pro se, the judge, right? That is the respondent in the action, and the real party in interest has 4 people listed: Morgan Heidner, this person that sent me the notice yesterday, and 2 other people, right? So she has a whole legal team going on there, right? And remember, the action is not against her; it's against the court, the lower court, right? So that makes me think, why, because the worst that could happen here is that my motion for a stay gets granted and they can't, serve my parental rights. But why the need to put 4 people in there, right? A whole legal team. And this is a theory, right? It seems to me like they are not protecting my former partner. They are there to protect the system, right? They are there because the system cannot put a team of international, of top shelf lawyers in that case, right? Because it would look weird. So the solution is to inject them using the real party of interest, right? So the real party, they look like yes, they're there to disarm my petition, but not to protect the interest of the real party in interest. They're there to protect the respondent, right? There's no other explanation why. I mean, think about it, right? Why insert all these lawyers into that case, something that is so visible and so obvious? Everybody's going to ask the question, where is this money coming from, right? Including me. I'm gonna turn on the call vaccine to see if it's suitable or appropriate for me to file a discovery request to understand who's paying for these lawyers, right? I mean, this is important because these lawyers, their job is to keep my parental rights served, right? So I need to understand who's paying them. I mean, I think that would be within my right. It would be my reasoning, right? To understand who is paying these lawyers to serve my parental rights, to keep my parental rights served. So I think I should have a right to know that information, right? And I imagine, right, there might be accounting tricks that you can do to make it look like it's not expensive, but I think we all can see through that, right? I mean, I imagine there are metrics of, billable hours per number of words in documents filed in court for lawyers. I mean, this has to be a well-known metric, right? And if they file, a document, or I don't know, 200 pages of documents, and then charge $600, right? We know it's not. We know what they're doing, right? And I think we can also see by the level of sophistication in the filings, like the level of sophistication has to match the price in the invoice, right? It can be that they're cheaper than Morgan Heibner, for example, who already said on the record that she charges $450 per hour. It can be the case that they charge less, but their filings are more sophisticated than Morgan Heibner's. I mean, that would be a tremendous contradiction. It would mean that Morgan Heibner is defrauding her client with the invoice, right? She's overcharging her client for a service that she obviously can't provide. So I don't know. I think it's going to be an interesting development, right? To understand how that invoicing works and who is paying for all that, right? But it's interesting to me, right? The fact that all of a sudden, after I made that filing, yes, this was minutes after I made that filing yesterday, like 10 minutes after. I made a filing yesterday that was very important. I suggest people to check it out. I'll put the link on the video, on this video. And like 10 minutes after, that came in, right? So they had that already prepared, but they hadn't triggered it because they know it's high risk, because it's visible and it's traceable, right? So, they decided to trigger it, right? And that let me see that they're desperate, because if they decided to take that high risk action, is because they see no other choice. Now, speaking of choices, right? I have to tell you, I ran the Bizarro cold vaccine, right? I mean, I configured the cold vaccine as if it was the OW lawyers, right? The new lawyers, to see what are their options, right? I have to tell you, it doesn't look good. According to the cold vaccine, they're trapped. I mean, and I'm not going to give them any hints, of course, right? But it doesn't look good. It doesn't look like they have any options. Any way that they take, I mean, they have to try to get out, right, from the kidnapping. That's what they need to do. But anything that they try to do will hurt. It doesn't, the vaccine couldn't find any way out that doesn't put liability on one of them, right? If the lawyer backs out of the order, then if the judge invalidates Morgan Heibner draft, then Morgan Heibner is out. It doesn't look good. So it's one of those things, right? That if you keep pushing, you're just gonna go deeper in it. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But the fact that she now has a team of lawyers. It's a team. Like now the thing is like this. I didn't watch the OJ trial because I wasn't following that when that happened. But if this is a team, right? This is a legal team on that to defend. I mean, and she's not even the respondent. She is the real party. I understand, right, that she has a right to respond, but you have to question the motivation, right? Why engage a team of professionals to respond to this, which the only thing that it's seeking is to restore my parental rights? It's and beyond that, right? Think for a second that what Morgan Heiner said is true, right? That she only has $9,000 in her bank account. Does it sound like a reasonable thing to do for a person that has $9,000 in her bank account to spend $100,000 in legal fees to keep the other party from exercising his parental rights? I mean, there's nothing to win for her on that, right? I mean, that's not even the divorce, right? That is just to keep me from exercising my parental rights for 30 days because the orders are temporary anyway. So does that seem reasonable? Yeah. I think it's just too transparent. It's too obvious, right? So anyhow, I just wanted to put it out there. Of course, I'm gonna, do that analysis and run this through the pipeline, and to see what comes back. But I'll be on the watch out for for the billable hours, I guess, because that's the in these kind of things, right? You have to follow the footprint. You have to follow the paper trail and the money trail. That's those things are created inevitably because they're tied to things like the reputation of the lawyers, the firms, who are the partners in those firms. It's like when Phil Denning sued me with the RBWMH law firm, to harass me, and then when they backpedal, they put in the amount $3,000, right? I mean, it's easy to see what they're doing, right? Like if you look at how much money the partners made per year, would these people waste any time on a lawsuit for $3,000, right? Is that something that is logical, that makes sense? So I think people will see through that, right? But anyhow, I think the best course of action here is to let it play, right? See what they file, and then do discovery, I guess, right? To see who paid for that and what was the productivity of that team of lawyers, and what was the cost per filing, right? And compare that to Morgan Heibner's cost, right? Which is already filed in the court because she filed all those costs with the court, right? And she verbally said that she charged $450 per hour, I think she said. So that gives us a baseline, right, to compare this team of lawyers with Morgan Heibner and the amount of work that Morgan Heibner has done versus the amount of the sophistication of the work that this new team is going to do now on this other area. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what comes out. But what's definitely interesting to me is that I was able to see. I mean, and I've known this for a long time, right? But I never said because it's not. But it's interesting to me to see the psychological play, right? It's like in the things that they're doing yesterday and today, right? My interactions with her and everything, they seem centered in make me believe that I'm losing, right? They want to convince me that they're winning, right? It's like, I don't know, it's super interesting, right? And I have to say, right, I recognize that they are state actors and they have been doing this for maybe 60 years or 70 years, right? The data points from Brazil that we found, right? So I know that when they do these things, it's because they know that they work, right? So I give them credit. I'm not saying that they're naive, right? But it's interesting to me to see how they have industrialized the psychological manipulation as well, right? Because this is another TTP, right? This is not something that they're doing on the fly. It's not a person behind a desk, in a dark room planning how to manipulate. No, I mean, this is written in an operational manual that they have, right? But I don't know. And this is recording the cameras, right? One occasion, right? She came here, and so in a space of like 5 minutes, right? She told me that, that I failed, that I lost everything, that I lost my job, I lost my family. Like, she gave me like it was like a rapid fire of things that seemed designed to discourage me, right? Well, this was like months ago, right? But I could see through that, right? I don't take it personally. I know that, that they have to do whatever they can, right? But the other thing that is interesting, right, is that I see, I mean, it's amazing to see, and I don't know, right? When I see the things, I think sometimes, gosh, I wish somebody that works in this field, I mean, because I don't work in this field, right? I'm just a witness, right? I'm just witnessing what they're doing. But I think it would be valuable for somebody that works in this field to be able to see this firsthand, because you wouldn't believe it, right? I mean, if I tell you what I've seen, you wouldn't believe it. Well, you would believe it, but you wouldn't. I don't think it's possible for me to convey the level of sophistication of the psychological manipulation to a point that I can tell you they run experiments with people, right? The same way I run experiments with data, or when I was at Google, and at Google we were running experiments on ranking. It's the same thing. It's the same. It's the same. It feels the same, right? But instead of running the experiments with users, right? Google users clicking on things, the experiment is with the target, right? They experiment and see what works and what doesn't work. And they adapt. And that's one of the reasons why they have to keep the cars close to the car, to the black Tesla, when I'm inside the car. It's not only to get the audio, it's also to route instructions, right? And that day, to give you an example, right? That day that she asked me to drive, right? She gave me the keys. We were going to Blue's house, right? And I'm sorry for, I want to say these things as in the personal aspect of it, right? Just, I'm saying it from the perspective of a witness that is witnessing a TTP and wants to convey to the people that work in that, right? So they can understand how it works, right? Because of the privileged point of view that I have, because they're directing this at me, I can see it, right? So, let's remove the personal aspect of this, right? Like, imagine that it's not me and it's not her, right? But I'm going to describe the scenario, okay? So she gives me the keys, right? Which is a tremendous contradiction to begin with, because she went to court to say that I'm crazy and that I'm a slam brakes and I'm a danger to the child. So how can she give me the keys of her car to drive her on the highway to Blue's house with the child on the back, right? So she right there is saying that she knows that I'm not crazy. Anyhow, she gives me the keys, right? And as the minute I start driving, these people, right, just that basically, right, they started bringing the cars with the bizarro flashlight so I would see them, right? It's a harassment technique. So the idea is harass me. They think it's harassment. Like I don't get stressed by the bizarro flashlight. I see it as bingo. I got another one. But anyhow, they started doing this, right? Every minute, and I know that the frequency was abnormal, right? They don't come that often. But that day, they were coming every minute behind me, right? And then she started with the dynamic saying that I'm paying more attention to the cars than to driving, and she took out the phone to record me, all that, right? That to create evidence for Morgan Hartley. But as we're driving, right? And then she starts doing that and takes out the phone. I said something about her dad, right? Nelio Spina. I can't recall exactly what I said. But when I said that, right, she told me, well, I'm going to look at my phone to see if I have anything for work. And she started looking at the phone, right? And the cars start passing next to us and staying. So we're in the highway, right? I don't know, maybe 40 miles per hour, 50 miles per hour. There was a bit of traffic. So the cars would come, stand next to her window for 2 seconds, and then keep going. And another car would come, stay there for 2 seconds, and keep going, right? After like 2 or 3 cars passed, she checked her phone, right? And she, it looked like an Instagram. That's what it looked like, right? Like the UI. I could see the UI. It looked very much like Instagram's messaging, right? I'm not saying that it was Instagram. I couldn't see the logo, but the UI looked very similar. But after that, she looked at her phone, and there was a blob of text. She read it, and when she closed the phone, she immediately changed her demeanor, like her stance changed. She stopped being confrontational, and she started. She changed more in a, like her behavior was more towards being. How would I describe it? It was more being compassionate and melancholic about the good times in Marcelo's childhood, right? So she started remembering when Marcelo was born and bringing up all these emotional situations of his early childhood, right? But her tone was not confrontational anymore. And this was like this, like the change was immediate. It was a switch, right? And this happened after these 3 cars stopped for a second next to her and kept going. So this let me understand a few things, right? The first thing is that they reduced the transmission window, right? That's the first technical thing I can see. If you look at my previous video where I went about technical things and how I split the things multi-channel, right? Their system is still single channel, but the workaround that they do is that they encrypt the string and they split it in chunks and they transmit it on the same channel, NFC, or near field communication. But instead of using 1 car to send the 500 bytes in my example before, they send 3 cars, right? And that way, it's 3 different MAC addresses, 3 different keys of encryption, and it makes it harder because you have to intercept the 3 packages, right? And decrypt them. Well, and put them together and then decrypt. And this, I'm going to make a note that I didn't make in the previous video. And I'm not going to do the whole explanation again, but I'm going to clarify something that I did not clarify, right? In my previous video, I said, well, the example is a string of text. The 387 core is going to find you in contempt on October 10th, right? You encrypt that, and that produces an encrypted string of bytes. You split that into chunks, and you transmit each chunk by different channels, right? But I didn't explain, and I say, well, you have to intercept the 3. But I didn't explain why, right? For a technical person, this would be obvious, but for a non-technical person, this might not be obvious. I'm going to say it. When you have this encrypted string, if you have a chunk of it, you may not be able to unencrypt the chunk. It might be impossible if the size of the chunk is smaller than the cipher window. This is a technical thing, and I don't want to get into cryptography, but believe me that if the chunk is small enough, it may be undecipherable, undecryptable. Like you can't do anything with it. The only way you can decrypt the string, because you may think, well, what if they capture 1 chunk, and in that chunk they captured, they decrypted, and it said contempt in the tomorrow October 10, right? That if that was possible to decrypt a chunk and map it to a chunk of the superstring, original superstring, that might still contain valuable information, but that's not the case. When you have an encrypted text, it's not a one-to-one relationship. It's not like the first chunk of the encrypted string matches to the first chunk of the unencrypted text. It doesn't work like that, right? And to explain why, I will have to get into cryptography, and it's a deep topic, would be here for hours, right? But believe me that if they capture 1 chunk, if the chunk is small enough, they may not be able to get anything out of that. They need the 3 chunks and put them together and then decrypt. Or if the chunk is long enough, they may be able to decrypt it, right? And then get something useful, partial but useful, or useful but partial. So what they do with the cars, why they pass multiple cars, it's the same, right? Because they know that it's a weakness, that it's a single channel system, and they don't have time right now to fix that, to develop a new system of communication and deploy globally. It will take them a year or 2 years, right? So they have to hack it, right? And to hack it, because they're lazy, what they're doing is they pass 3 cars, right? Instead of 1 car. But that tells me immediately that what they're doing is lowering the window of transmission, so the chunk is smaller than the cipher window, right? To make that chunk undecryptable, right? The same idea of what I'm doing. But beyond the technical, right, I could see how after these 3 cars, and I have the 3 cars because this is, I had the pen drive, I have the camera footage of the car, right, of that day. So, this is recorded. Like, all I'm saying is recorded in the videos. And I already posted the videos, I think, in YouTube. It's in a zip file, if I recall correctly. The only thing you would need is the audio recording from inside the car, which I have, right? And I'll donate that. So, and you can see the correlation between, the aggressive behavior before the 3 cars, and then the, conciliatory behavior after the 3 cars. And the switch is like this, right? So that's the reason, one of the main reasons why they have to keep doing this thing with the car while I'm inside of the car, because it's a way of where they're listening, right, first of all, and then they have somebody sending instructions on how to behave, right? So they're running a psychological experiment. They are adjusting her behavior to see what reaction they can cause on me, right? To see if they can get information or if they can cause a stress, I guess, right? But it's super interesting, right? And the same thing happened. When was that? The same thing happened today, right? We were in the car and she started, well, yesterday, right? So yesterday we were in the car and she said that thing that I filed, what she said, I filed it with the appellate court. And after that, right? 5 minutes after, she changed her behavior, right? I imagine that she was told that she made a mistake, right? What she told me was a mistake, right? There's no way to, it was a terrible, terrible mistake because she gave me 2 pieces of information. She told me that supposedly Morgan Heimler was going to sue me for defamation, right? And she told me that because I'm prolonging the process longer than it needs to be, and I'm quoting her exact words, she would be restricting the amount of time I'm going to be seeing my son, which, that's unlawful, right? You can't punish a parent for seeking relief in a higher court, and especially not with the child. And this is a situation created by the court, by the lower court. Right? So this is a terrible mistake. And 5 minutes after she said that, she changed her behavior, right? So I guess she was told, don't do that, try to fix it, try to conciliate, because, not good. So it's a system designed to not only gather information, but to also send commands real time, right? Or near real time. And that's the other reason why she asked me to drive that day, because if she's driving, she cannot check the phone, so it was important that I drive so she could receive the instructions, she could read them, right? Because she's not driving. But it creates other contradictions, right? Like, if you really think this person is crazy and is a danger, how can you give him the keys to your car? I mean, how can, in general, right? How can you, on one side, give a person the keys to your car where you're traveling with your son, and at the same time, spend $60,000 trying to declare this person crazy in a court? It's a fundamental contradiction, right? I mean, $60,000 when you have supposedly $9,000 in your bank account. So supposedly you're getting deeply in debt to call this person crazy for a period of 60 days only. But at the same time, you ask him to drive your car and with the child on the back. Right? It's just too obvious, right? But anyhow, it's one of those things that seeing them firsthand, it's amusing in a sense, right? I mean, it's I don't know how to say it, but it's amusing to me, at least, right, to realize that the world, entire planet, can be controlled this way, right? Because I mean, this is not against. I mean, yes, I'm witnessing this right now, but they're doing this at planet scale, right? They didn't design the system or the TTPs for me. They've been doing this for decades, even before I was born, right? Now, what they have is the empowerment of technology to do this at planet scale efficiently, right? With better capabilities, more real time, more control, more monitoring. But the mechanisms predate even my existence, right? So it's amusing in that sense, right? Like, to realize that if you do something and you do it well and you do it at a scale, you can control the planet. I mean, I always thought that if somebody was going to control the world, it would be through the use of nuclear power, right? Or something like that, right? Biological weapons, right? It never occurred to me it would be through the use of psychological manipulation at a hyperlocal level, but at planet scale, right? Empowered with the legal system. So it's mind blowing, really. I'm saying that from the point of view of the technologies, right? Just it's mind blowing to see how technology can be used to control people, right? Anyhow, I'm gonna close this one for now. But I'll keep looking, and the cold mobile is almost ready to go, and I'm excited to go out and get signals all over Katy, and I have already a few places that I'm looking forward to visiting soon. So I'll report back on that. See you the next one.